All right, I'm excited for this video. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to convert HTML and CSS site into a custom WordPress theme. And I created a video similar to this a few years back, and I'm excited because I've learned quite a bit in the last few years about how WordPress works and really come up with a more helpful framework for creating custom themes. And so this has been really helpful in just how I've interacted with clients and sort of shown them how this all works. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my web design website, which is a static HTML CSS site, meaning all it is it was housed on my server as HTML and CSS files, and I'm going to theme this in WordPress. So we'll do that step by step. Really quickly before we get started, I just want to show you, I want to introduce to you sort of the concept of theming in WordPress. And really, in WordPress, the idea is that it takes multiple files, PHP files, template files, they're called, and it sort of smushes them all into one HTML page, combines multiple files to create one single HTML page. So when you go to a website that's a WordPress website, it's an HTML page that's being rendered, that's being shown by the browser, but it's really collecting 3 or more PHP files to create that HTML file. And so here is the model we're going to sort of work with as we think through theming and as we do the theming. There are really 3 PHP files, theme files, that I'm going to be working in this video. Header.php, which controls, obviously, the header, right? So we're going to probably control this yellow bar in our header.php. Page.php, which controls everything underneath our header and everything before our footer, okay? So we'll do that. And then back to our model, footer.php. So basically what WordPress will do is you'll theme out these 3 files to recreate our custom design here in HTML and CSS. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a few really quick things that we all can do right off the bat. And the first is to just remove all of our styles that come with, oh, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, the theme we're using. We're using a theme called HTML5 blank. So this is the totally blank WordPress theme, no styles associated with it. This is what it looks like out of the box. No styles, just kind of blank, which is great because we want to create a custom theme. We want custom design. So a blank theme is perfect. So if you just Google HTML5 blank, you'll see html5blank.com, and you can download the latest version and add it to your WordPress. So I've already done that. So a few things I'm going to do right off the bat. I'm going to go into my appearance editor, and I'm going to go into my style.css. WordPress uses style sheets just like any other website. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything in my style.css file. I'm going to paste it in here. I also have in my website a separate file for responsive CSS, my responsive styles. I'm just going to take all of that too, copy it, and put it all together in this one style.css file. Okay, so that's the first sort of housekeeping thing we'll do, is all of our styles are in here. So everything that we've got styled in our static HTML and CSS, all of those styles will now translate over to WordPress. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Media and then Library. And one thing that you can count on being, let me delete all of these. So one thing that you can count on messing up as you're theming is any links to image files, right? So your links that you created in your HTML CSS page aren't going to be the same because we're working in a new file format structure in WordPress. So what we want to do is I'm going to just take, I don't want any of these Photoshop files, but I want all of the rest of these files in, these are gigantic. I don't know why they're such big files. But I'm going to put all of these in, just drop them right into the media library in WordPress. So depending on your internet connection, this could take a long time or a little time, but basically what I want to do is I want to make sure I've got all of my image files on my server in WordPress before I get started with anything. So we're just going to let that load. I guess I'll probably just pause the video, and then when these are done loading, we'll continue. Okay, so we're pretty much all uploaded here, all of our image files. We'll come back to these. We'll need these again eventually. So before we start theming, just a kind of a recap of what we did. We dumped all of our CSS into the style.css. We uploaded all of our media files. So if I reload, again, nothing really should change. The other thing we want to do is, before we get started, is we want to go to Settings and Reading. And we want to change our front page to be a page instead of a post. So this is real quickly the difference between pages and posts in WordPress. Pages are kind of more traditional web pages, what you think about as a single page in a website. Posts are more traditionally as what you would think about as a blog post. So I'm going to be working exclusively in pages for this video. So I'm going to change my front page. So my main URL I'm going to change from a post to a static page. And the only static page that exists is this default page called sample page. So I'm going to save that. I am going to, and then search engine discourage search engines from indexing this site. I'm going to not check this because I would love my site to be indexed. And then I'm going to go to pages, and I'm going to change this sample page to home. And there's some sample text in here. I'm just going to delete this sample text. And I'm going to update. So when we refresh, it changes a little bit, but not much. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Appearance, Widgets, and right now there's a bunch of default widgets in our widget area. I'm just going to pull them out because they're showing up on the page. So you'll notice they're showing up here. I don't want them there. So I remove them, and so when I refresh, it should remove them. Okay, so now we're looking good. We've just got a blank canvas that we're starting with. Just a little bit more background, bear with me. You can fast forward ahead of this if you already know all of this. But a little bit of background on why WordPress is such a good option for web design. So basically, when we're talking about content, the main thing that comes to mind for a lot of people is textual content, but really any content. When we are designing in HTML, or when we're creating websites in HTML and CSS, this content, right, these paragraphs of text are most likely going to be wrapped in paragraph tags, right? And so if you wanted to change any of this text, you would have to go into the HTML file. You would have to go find the paragraph tag right here, and you could manually change the text of this paragraph if you wanted to revise it or edit it or remove it or whatever. That's only for people that actually know what's going on in HTML. Those are the only people that could actually make these changes. So what WordPress does is it allows you to, instead of having all of the content controlled in HTML paragraph tags, you can now, as we theme them out, control them in basically what you see is what you get fields, right? So instead of someone seeing something that looks like this, which looks like a foreign language to a lot of people, they would see this, and they'd be able to change the content here in this what you see is what you get editor, as opposed to in something like this. So our job as developers is to transform this into this that allows someone that's not familiar with web design or HTML to be able to change any and all of the content that they require or desire to change. And so the way that that happens is through basically a database-driven design, right? And so instead of the content, this text being stored in a HTML file, it is now going to be stored in a database. And so essentially the way that we think about this, again, just bear with my crude models. If we think about the way this works, there's a SQL database that has fields. And a database is really just a fancy way of thinking about a table, right? So if you think about like Microsoft Excel, there's columns and rows. A database is essentially just columns and rows of stuff, right? And so basically what we want to do then is our content is stored in a column or row of an SQL database or a table, and is fetched by some PHP code and then displayed transformed into HTML and then displayed on our web page. Okay, so this is our crude model of sort of what's happening in WordPress. So instead of this particular paragraph being stored in a single HTML file, this paragraph will be stored in a field fetched by PHP, transformed into HTML, and then displayed on the web page. So the hope then is, instead of your client or whoever messing with the HTML or messing with the PHP code, we want to create an intermediary between these two steps. And that intermediary is these, what you see is what you get fields. If that was a little confusing, I apologize. I just wanted to try to make it conceptually clear. And it looks like my internet just went out, so just bear with me while I try to get it back. Okay, internet's back. So let's continue on. Hopefully that talk about the models were helpful. And so basically what we're going to do is we are going to we'll do what's sort of more static, and then we'll move on to the more dynamic stuff. So we'll start with our header, and then we'll do our footer, and then we'll mess with page later. So the first thing we want to do is I want to take a look at my original HTML file. This is the original HTML file, and again I'll post this in the notes. And as you see, what will go in my header is really this yellow section here. And so what I want to do is I want to notice where body opens, and I want to open. I'm going to go to Appearance Editor, and then I'm going to go to Theme Header, header.php. Then I'm going to proceed. And really what I want to do now is a couple things. One, I want to copy all of my Google fonts. So if you've got Google fonts, you're going to want to copy those. I'm going to put those in my head tag. Save that. I also want to copy this responsive design, meta initial scale. Oh, we already have that on there. Huh. WordPress is smart, so we're just going to leave that. And it looks like I've got animation.css linked as well. I'm not going to mess with that. Linking external additional style sheets is a whole pain in the butt, so we're not going to worry about that right now. So that takes care of the head. Then I want you to notice, scroll down and find the body. So this is where our body opens. And I want you to notice that basically what header.php is controlling is whatever we tell it to control. But I want you to show you kind of the most important well, a couple important PHP tags. So one is this highlighted tag, PHP HTML5 blank nav underscore nav. That's a tag. So if we go back to our model, that's this little bit of PHP code that's pulling something directly from, thank you, our SQL database. And so this little PHP code is pulling from the pages of our website. So it'll automatically create your navigation bar based on the pages that you've created, the title of the pages you've created in your website. That's all happening behind the scenes. We didn't have to code that. That's happening with WordPress. So I'm going to copy that, and you'll notice if we go back to our HTML file, we have a nav tag and they have a nav tag. The only difference is we've got a UL, we've got an unordered list followed by a list to create our navigation bar. So to create this navigation bar, these are just list items. We don't want to do that because that's static. And so we're going to delete that and we're going to paste in this bit of PHP code. So again, to bring this back to our model, we're just wrapping this bit of PHP code inside of an HTML tag. So we're taking this PHP code that's pulling from our navigation, our pages, we're wrapping it in HTML, and that's getting displayed on our web page. Okay, so again, if this is not crystal clear at this point, hopefully as we continue on in the video, it'll start to get more clear. So that will change. The other thing I want to change that you'll notice here are these links to index.html. Index.html is not going to exist any longer because we're going to be on the WordPress framework. So you'll notice there is this little bit of code. It's an A tag. I'm going to paste it right here. And then again, instead of index.html, it's got some PHP. And it's pulling from our SQL database. Again, our models, our PHP code pulls from our MySQL database. And it's pulling from the field called home_URL. Just like this is pulling from a field called HTML5 blank underscore nav. This is pulling from a field called home_URL. So instead of linking statically to index.html, I'm going to remove any of those links and replace them with this excellent PHP tag. Okay. So other than that, I am pretty good pretty happy with the way my HTML looks. My name is never going to change, so I don't need to create a field in our SQL database for my name. My title is never going to change, so I'm not going to create a SQL field for our title. So I'm happy with our header. It's pretty much themed out. I'm going to copy everything from div class container to these two closing divs. And I'll explain to you kind of what's happening. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go into our header.php and delete everything. Everything after body. And I'm going to paste in my new header content that's themed out. I'm going to update my file. And a couple things I want to point out. One, we created I have a container div. You may or may not have a container div, but I have a container div that contains everything on the page. And that opens in the header, but what's interesting is if you go into theme footer, it closes in the footer right there. That's where it closes. And they call it wrapper, I call it container, so I'll just change this little note to container close. And that goes back to our original model of 3 files getting smushed together into one HTML file. So even if we open up a div and header, we can close it in a totally different file, and it still talks to each other when it puts it together as an HTML file, when it renders it as an HTML file. Okay, so our header is pretty good. Before we move on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just go into my footer, and we'll theme out the footer later. But I'm going to just copy. I'm going to make this static for now. So just bear with me. I'm going to make the footer static for now. We'll theme it out later. But I am going to copy everything in the footer, including this row. And then this is our container div, I believe. Let me make sure. Yep. This is our container div, so I'm not going to copy that because that's already in our PHP file. So I'm going to copy everything in our footer, and I'm going to replace everything that was in our footer except for our closing div, and paste in my old footer, my HTML footer. Okay, we'll theme this out. We'll make this all custom dynamic, but for now, just bear with me. We'll keep the footer static. So let's see what changes we have so far. There we go. And we've got our footer, we've got our header. One thing that I'm noticing is our Google fonts aren't loading for some reason. And that's odd. I put the Google fonts in, so let me just try to do a hard refresh, and if that doesn't work, we're just not going to worry about it. Do a hard refresh. Nope, it's not working. One thing we will notice, though, is home is the only element in our nav bar. So that's interesting. We need work and hire me. So again, remember how I said we use this PHP code right there that calls on a field called HTML5 blank underscore nav. Well, that field is populated by pages. So I'm going to just create 2 new pages, one called work, and I'm going to say this should be second in our nav bar, and I'm going to add a third page called hire me, and this should be third in our nav bar. Okay, so now when we refresh, we should be able to see these three, which we do, which is great. The other thing I'm noticing is that the background color, the background image here on this circle isn't showing up. And that's probably because our circle, that background image is linked to an old URL, an old link. So if we search for circle, this background image is linked to darkembroidery.jpg. So remember, we uploaded earlier we uploaded every single one of our image files in our media library, so we can go back to that. And I need to find darkembroidery.jpg. I think this is probably it. Oh, this is .png. I wonder if we have a JPG. Here we go, darkembroidery.jpg. So I'm going to copy this URL, and I'm going to paste it into the link, the background. Placed all of our image files. Let's see if that changes anything. There we go. So our image files are showing up. Our Google fonts still aren't showing up, but we'll take care of that later. Great. So our header's done, our footer's done. Before we move on to theming the page stuff in earnest, I want to show you sort of how pages work. So let's go into page.php, and I want to show you what this little bit of content is doing. So PHP, the content, let's go back to our model again. It's PHP that's pulling from our SQL database, and it is a field called the content. And that field is controlled by this what you see is what you get editor right here. So this what you see is what you get editor is what goes into the PHP the content field. Okay, so I'm going to update that, and this should show up now right there. So it's kind of hard to see. Let me blow that up for you a little bit. This field that your client or anyone would be able to change, you can add a lot of content here. So we can reload that, and it will show up on the page, right? So that little bit of PHP code, PHP the content, is pretty powerful. That's a pretty powerful bit of code that is occurring right here. And what we could do, what I'm not going to recommend is, what we could do is we could take everything that is going on the page. So if we go back to we could take everything below header, all this stuff, and everything before footer starts, all the way until here. We could copy and paste it. So just bear with me. I could take this and all of this HTML until before footer starts. Where's footer? Right there. Copy it. And I could go into our page, delete this, go into our text view, which allows for code, paste all of this code in there, hit update, and it would look fairly close to what the site should look like. Fairly close, right? So we've got, I mean, it's close, right? There's images and text, and there's problems with typography and things like that, but that's a pretty quick fix, and that's sort of what I taught in the last theming video. But I think there's a lot of problems with doing things this way. The problem with doing things this way is your client could potentially really easily just delete one of these divs. So let's say I accidentally delete that div, and I hit update. If I reload, it's going to throw off the styles because those divs no longer exist, right? So now it threw off that style. Things aren't looking quite correct at this point, right? So there are reasons why we don't want to just copy and paste this entire code into the text box, even though it gets us close to the end goal. That's not what we want to do. Okay, so instead what we want to do is we want to theme, we want to create, let's go back to our model, we want to create PHP code that pulls from our database all of the areas that need to be customized or changed. All of the content areas that need to be customized or changed. And so the problem is the default template only allows for one field controlled by the PHP code, PHP the content, in our page interface. So what we want to do is we want to add more than just one field. We want to add many fields to control. For example, I'd love a field that allowed me to change this text. And I'd love a field that allowed me to change this text. And I'd love a third field that allowed me to change this text. Right? And so what we'll do now is we will create those fields so that you can change this text without changing the design. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now that we kind of understand what the PHP is doing, let's go ahead and theme out some of the main sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the, well, one thing that I'm going to do actually is, before we do anything, is I'm going to grab all of my JavaScript too. So I have a bunch of JavaScript that I have just popped into the bottom of my HTML page. I'm going to pop that into my footer.php file before we move on. And there's better ways to handle JavaScript too, I realize, but just bear with me. So I'm going to put all of that in my JavaScript in my footer file, and I'm going to scroll back up, and we're going to now chop up this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to keep all of this static. I'm not going to theme out this for now, just for sake of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all of that stuff, and all of that stuff seems to be, let's find, that's where the row ends. I'm going to copy all of this, and this is going to be just static, the hero image and this JavaScript that's doing this typing text thing and these two buttons. Okay, so that's all going to be static. We'll change that out later, but for the sake of time, I just want to pop that in. So what I'm going to do is I am going to actually do something kind of crazy. I am going to copy this PHP, the content, and I'm going to paste it right after get header. And I'm going to delete everything underneath until we get to get sidebar. And actually we're not going to, I'm just going to leave get sidebar there even though we're not going to do really anything with it. So we just actually have a bare bones blank template right now. And so above the content, and again, just as a reminder, the content is connected to that default Wysiwyg editor in Pages. So above that, we're going to put this hero image. So I'm going to just paste, oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back here, paste in the entire hero image. So this is all static code for the hero image. Really the only thing that we do need to change out is our URL to work. So I'm going to change this to chrislamdesign.com/work. I'm going to update my file and let's refresh and see what we got going on. Perfect. So that looks almost identical to what we have going on. That search bar is showing up somewhere. I wonder where that search bar is showing up. We'll get rid of that in a second. The only thing that's not showing up is this typing text, and that has something to do with our JavaScript. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll worry about that in a second here. So that's in. That's great. The next thing I want to do then is I want to theme out really just this content. 1, 2, 3. 3 bits of content I would want to change. I would want to be able to change. So that starts here in this div called homepage. And really, so what we're going to do is we're going to find the content that we want to be themed, that we don't want to be static HTML, and we're going to just delete it. Okay, so that's kind of crazy, but we just did that. And I'm going to actually just put a placeholder called we need PHP field goes here. So we need a PHP field that will go here that will allow us, if we go back to our model, to pull from a field in our database, convert to HTML, and display on our web page, right? So the problem is that field doesn't exist, right? So part of the limitations of HTML5 blank is, and really any WordPress theme is, we're only limited to the content, one default field. So one thing I can do is I can actually take the content and we can pop that in between these paragraph tags. Okay, so in between these paragraph tags is really just the content. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the same thing for this HTML. And we're going to, I'm going to just put a placeholder now. We need a PHP field here. We're going to do the same thing for our third and final section, PHP field here. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to grab this entire section And I am going to copy it, including this anchor tag for my smooth scroll. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to actually just paste it right here. Okay, so let me just show you real quick what I did. I copied and pasted everything, and basically the only thing that we have a field for so far is our default field, and that's the content. We don't have a field for these placeholders. So what we have to do is we have to create two fields for these placeholders. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and download a plugin called Advanced Custom Fields. And Advanced Custom Fields is pretty awesome because it allows you to create any field. So let's go back to our model again. It allows you to create any field in our database, our SQL database, and gives you corresponding PHP code that you can put into your PHP templates. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate Advanced Custom Fields. And it is awfully slow right now, so oh, internet went out. Let me pause the recording. All right, internet's back. So here we go. I just wanted to show you, recap what we did. We created placeholders for custom fields, but I want to show you what it looks like. So right now we hard-coded the headings and the buttons into our page template. And now all we need to do is we need to actually insert our custom fields that actually control the text. So this is the only thing that a user will be able to change. So right now we have PHP the content, the default field controlling this bit of text. We need two more. We need one for the middle and one for the right. So what I'm going to do is I've installed this plugin called Advanced Custom Fields, and I'm going to go to Custom Fields here at the bottom. And hopefully, there we go. I'm going to add a new field group, and I'm going to call this field group Homepage. And I'm going to add two new fields. The first field we're going to call Why Choose Me. So that's the field name is Why Choose Me. The field type, I'm going to just call this text area because, and let me go in and show you why. If we go into our page.php again, you'll see that actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change this. So where are we? Who am I is the content. This middle field is Why Choose Me. So I had it wrapped in paragraph tags, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to have it sitting out by itself. And the reason for that is there may be more than one paragraph, and in fact there is more than one paragraph. All of these actually have two paragraphs. And so we want the user to be able to add more than one paragraph. So to do that, we're going to choose Wysiwyg Editor. So this is a what you see is what you get editor, and then you can add field instructions. So you can say text for Why Choose Me section goes here, wrap in paragraph tags, and then add class last to the last paragraph. So that's just extra styles that I added. Okay, so that's good. That's good. I'm going to add a second field called what's in it. I'm just going to call it what's in it. Why choose me and then what's in it. I'm going to make that a Wysiwyg editor as well, and I'm just going to add these field instructions. Text for what's in it for me section goes here. And then I'm going to just make sure that this shows up. Page is equal to home. So these will show up in our home page. I'm going to make the style standard, and I'm going to publish. Okay, so what this does now, what I just did in advanced custom fields is I created 2 fields in our database. So if we go back to our model again, I created 2 fields in our SQL database called why choose me and what's in it. Now what I need is I need to come up with the PHP code to place in my PHP template. So the way we can do this is we can just go to Advanced Custom Fields Documentation, and we can go to Wysiwyg. We'll go to Wysiwyg Editor. We'll go, this tells you how to do it, and then this is how to template usage, how to put this field in our template. Right, so we created the SQL field. Now we just need to create and link the PHP code in our template. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to our page, and where I have my placeholder, PHP field goes here. I'm going to paste that bit of PHP code right there. And instead of Wysiwyg test, the name is why choose me. I'm going to copy that, and we're going to go to our next placeholder, which is another Wysiwyg editor. And this one is called not why choose me, but it's called what's in it. Okay, now I'm going to save that. And now we've completed the loop. So we've created the SQL field. We've found the PHP code and added it to our template. Now all we have to do is add the content. So we can go, if we go into our home page, you'll notice a few things. You'll notice 3 sections now. This is our PHP the content. This is our default content. This is our why choose me section, and this is my what's in it section. So now instead of just 1 field, your user has 3 fields for which to enter content. So if we go back to our original HTML page, I'm just going to copy this text and pop that into our PHP the content. I'm going to take the second bit of text, copy that into the why choose me section, and our third bit of text, this is a unordered list. We'll copy that into our what's in it for me section. So I'm going to click update. And what's really cool is when we refresh here, we'll be able to see everything except for the contents not showing up for some reason. But the other 2 are showing up perfectly, which is really cool. So now instead of being hard-coded, these fields are now totally customizable, which is great. Let's figure out why the content, this PHP the content, is not working. So let's go back into our page.php file, and let's see. So the content's wrapped in a paragraph tag for some reason. I'm going to take that out of a paragraph tag, and I'm going to update. I think that's what was causing it. So let's go back to our design, and it's not working for some reason. PHP the content. Looks okay to me. I'm not sure why that's not working. Let's see if I can't figure out why this is not working. Well, it could be something with my server, or it could be something else, but I will work on that and not worry about that for now. So the last thing I want to do before I close this video out is I want to delete this search bar. So I'm going to figure out where that is. So let's go back to Appearance Editor. And I think it might be in sidebar.php. Yeah, get template search form. So I'm just going to delete that. You may want that at some point, but I don't need it for my purposes, and that should delete that. Yep. Great. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. A couple little things I got to clean up, but what I'll do is I'll stop the video here, and then I'll continue theming out the rest of this page in another video. Till next time.